This past June, I took my second theme park trip to Florida and my first one attending both Walt Disney World and the Universal Orlando Resort. Now, I already have plenty of Disney World content up on my channel, including a rides ranking video which will be put in the description if you want to check that out. But today we will be focusing on Universal, and in particular, Islands of Adventure. The Universal Orlando Resort is split up into two parks, similar to how Disney is split up into four. These parks are Universal Studios Florida and the Universal's Islands of Adventure Park. Due to costs and more importantly time constraints, I only visited the latter, but I also saw it as an opportunity to focus on that particular park. Next time I'm in Florida, I'll be sure to check out the main park, but from what everyone had told me, Islands of Adventure is the way to go if you can only choose one. And the ride lineup certainly backs this up. Not only that, but I think it's a big reason why Islands of Adventure turned out to be one of the best theme parks I'd ever been to. In today's video, I will be ranking the top 10 rides I experienced in just the Islands of Adventure park, but it's where most of the top rides would have likely been if I did this by the whole resort anyways. So with that being said, let's dive right into the list. Definitely stick around till the end because there's some amazing stuff here. These are the top 10 best rides at Universal's Islands of Adventure in Florida. Number 10, Cat in the Hat. The premier attraction at Seuss Landing is a prime example of a ride that's so bad that it's good. When people use the words acid trip to describe an amusement ride, Cat in the Hat is one of the few dark rides that comes to mind. It's such a chaotic ride with things to look at constantly, and of course with it being themed to something Dr. Seuss related, it's going to be pretty wacky too. But when Universal built this ride, I think they may have took wacky to the next level. Can we all take a moment to just look at the Cat in the Hat animatronic? Like, what the f is that? This has to be one of the only dark rides that's genuinely scary because these animatronics or whatever they are look like they're about to come to life and kill you. It's funny that this ride was built for kids, but I honestly think adults will get a good laugh out of it to the same extent as the little ones, if not more. Number 9, Dudley Do-Right's Ripsaw Falls. This is actually the one ride on this list that I unfortunately did not get to ride, but it's a pretty significant attraction, so I didn't want to leave it out. Instead, I asked a number of people who had ridden it where it should rank, and I usually got a placement around 9. Now, considering the ride's reputation as one of the best log flumes in the world, this may seem rather low, but aside from Cat in the Hat, all of the rides on this list are considered elite for their designated ride genres, which is the only reason this doesn't clock in higher on the list. Nonetheless, it looks to be a great time with cartoony theming and a pretty crazy looking drop at the end. It's also said that you get very wet on this thing, so look out for that also. I won't lie, I was a little salty when I didn't get to ride this, but I had to choose between it and the last ride of the night on Velocicoaster when it had started to rain, so I think I made the right call. Next time I come here though, I promise I'll make a serious effort to get on this thing. It looks like a great time. Number 8, Popeye and Bluto's Built-Rat Barges. River raft rides are known for getting riders drenched with water, but are never too significant in their park's ride lineup. It's rare that a coaster enthusiast goes to a park and makes it a point to ride their Rapids ride in particular. But Popeye's is one of the few exceptions to this, as all I've ever heard about this ride is that it's possibly the wettest ride of its kind. And after riding, I completely understand why this is, because it's not a gamble for if you'll get wet, but rather when you'll get wet. When you ride Popeye's, there's no way to avoid getting off drenched, and when I say drenched, I really mean it. The ride shows no mercy and is the wettest amusement ride I've ever seen in any dry park. It feels like you're taking a shower, it's ridiculous. But at the end of the day, that's the fun of it, and in the hot Florida sun, it's always appreciated. Number 7, Jurassic Park River Adventure. The OG Jurassic themed boat ride was a real treat to experience. Before this, I'd only ever ridden the re-themed Jurassic World attraction at Universal Studios Hollywood, and while I understand the appeal of a makeover, I thought it was really cool to rewind the clock and ride the original. The ride has many impressive animatronics, a great series of scenes and events, and a humongous final drop. The splashdown at the end of the ride will create a monumental wave of water and will get just about everyone in your boat pretty wet. As we end off the trio of water rides on this list, let me just say that Islands of Adventure might have the best water ride lineup in the world. All three of them are highly recommended, but for now, let's move on to some dark rides and roller coasters. Number 6, Skull Island Reign of Kong. This is a ride that I knew nothing about going into and was actually pretty blown away by. I can never decide between this and the number 5 spot, even though most of you will probably choose the latter, but it is very close in my opinion. It's basically like a large-scale version of the King Kong attraction as a part of the studio tour at Universal Hollywood, but this one is so much more impressive. The theming is amazing, the screens are so well done, and the action never stops until the end. And the ride, it just could have ended after the scenes, but to end things out, you have a giant Kong animatronic peeking out of the ground. And can someone fact check whether or not this is legitimately an animatronic, because it is so big that I was in disbelief. But as a whole, this ride was phenomenal and not at all what I was expecting. I would highly encourage this one. Number 5, The Amazing Adventures of Spider-Man. Another 3D screen ride can be found in Marvel Superhero Island and is more old school than Skull Island. But what they did with the technology of its time in 1999 is outstanding. This ride has some of the most impressive special effects I've ever seen before. There's water, air, fire, and it all makes you feel like you are actually there. Additionally, it's very action-packed and never lets up until the end, and although you don't notice it, you keep moving and going to different sections with their own unique screen setups. It's crazy. It's so seamlessly done and so impressive. So overall, if you haven't ridden this ride before, prepare for a sensory overload, I'm telling you. Number 4, Incredible Hulk. The first roller coaster on this list is also one of the most intense in the world. The ride was manufactured by Bolliger and Mabillard and is one of 2 launch coasters they've ever built. The ride is packed to the brim with extremely forceful inversions and some relentless pacing till the mid-course brake run. From there, it does die down a little bit, let's be real, but we all ride Hulk for the first half. Like, that section wouldn't even need to be there for people to love this ride, but at the end of the day, it does increase the ride time and it does help with capacity. But that aside, I cannot stress enough how exhilarating this ride is. It is absolutely not for the faint of heart, and I'm almost certain that you will gray out hardcore. Spoiler alert, it's amazing that this is only the 3rd best coaster in the park because I had the time of my life on this thing. Moving on. Number 3, Hagrid's Magical Creatures Motorbike Adventure. While Hulk focuses on its extremely intense layout, Hagrid's is a pretty different story. This ride isn't super crazy, but it is easily one of the most immersive roller coaster experiences in the world. Its storytelling element is possible due to its super long ride time, with 7 LSM launches, you heard that right, a reverse section, and a drop track. But amongst all of its unique characteristics, it's also got some very well done animatronics and theming. It is one of the best examples of a full package roller coaster that just does about anything you could want a themed coaster to achieve. But with that said, there are still 2 other rides here that I consider to be even better than this one. So let's get into the top 2. Number 2, Harry Potter and the Forbidden Journey. In 2019, I got to check out an identical version of this ride at Universal Studios Hollywood, and I was pretty blown away by it. It immediately became my favorite dark ride I'd ridden, and today it's still in my top 3. The dark ride technology on this ride, otherwise known as a robo coaster, allows for many unique movements that are to thank for this ride's transition scene by scene, and partly its immersion as well. It's just amazing to me how well this technology is able to work with its screens and theming, which leads me to another strength of this ride. Many dark rides at the Universal Studios parks get their fair share of hate for being all screen related. And while I could make the argument that, if you're good at something, why stop doing it, this ride should please just about anyone. Sure, it's got a lot of screens, but it's also got a lot of theming outside of that is equally as impressive. So after riding this thing in both of its US locations, it's now clear to me why it's been so widely acclaimed since its opening. I really think it's one of the best dark rides ever built, and it's also a huge winner for the Universal parks. Number 1, Jurassic World Velocicoaster. After opening this year and getting to ride it in the summer, I'm a firm believer that Velocicoaster isn't just the best ride at the Universal Orlando Resort, but also the best roller coaster in all of Florida. What Universal has done here is pretty remarkable if you ask me. I talked about how Hulk is a great big intense roller coaster and how Hagrids focuses on sheer immersion, but Velocicoaster takes the best of both worlds. It's got both fantastic theming and a phenomenal layout. The plotline, the animatronics, the raptor paddock, it's all remarkably well done. And then the ride course has a first half that really gets things started and is very well themed, before building up to a second half that hauls ass till the end. You've got airtime, laterals, inversions, near misses, and this isn't even to mention the Heartland rail at the end that might just be the most insane inversion I've ever experienced. But all things considered, this is one of the best roller coasters ever built. I don't think anyone can disagree with that. It's personally in my top 10, more specifically 7, and I promise just after one ride, there's no wonder why. So there we go, the top 10 best rides at Universal's Islands of Adventure. I hope you guys enjoyed the video and could consider liking the video and subscribing down below. It really does help me out and makes all this content more than worth producing. Also, if you've been here before, I'd love to see some comments for what your favorite rides at Islands of Adventure are, and if anything at the main park could rival the rides I mentioned here. But with that being said, thanks again for watching, and I'll see you all very soon. Bye guys.